Hello everyone and Happy New Year's. And welcome to the Ingles table. I'm Scott Culpepper and today I'm going to be showing you how to make my delicious New Year's Day pozole soup. I got everything I need from the local Ingles, so let's get started. So pozole is normally a Latin American soup made with pork, hominy, roasted chilies. So I'm going to start off with explaining the process for the chilies. I have arbol chilies here, which I use for the heat. And I have California chilies here, which are flavor. The Guajillo chilies are for flavor. And then these little chilies are smoked chilies that give it the smokiness with the flavor. But what I do is, to make the paste, remove all the stems from the ends. And then you'll see the seeds are gonna fall out. So just remove as many seeds as possible. Then put everything on a sheet pan. Roast it in your oven at 350 degrees for 5 or 10 minutes. Watch it carefully because it will burn easily. So once they're all toasted, combine all of the chilies in a large bowl with some oregano, onion, and hot water. You're going to pour the boiling water over the chilies, cover it with saran wrap, seal it tight, and let it steep for about 15 minutes. Once the chilies are all steeped and they're softened, remove everything, all the ingredients from the broth. Place the chilies in a blender and puree until it makes a smooth paste. Using the broth that you soak those in, slowly add it until you get your consistency of the smooth paste like that. So, to start off with, for the pozole part, I have cubed up 5 pounds of pork shoulder, trimmed it up nicely, removing a lot of the fat, but not all of it, because you want to have some of the fat for the flavoring. So what we did here is I placed the cubed pork in a large stock pot, and this is going to take about 30 or 45 minutes to cook down because it's going to the moisture is going to come out, it's going to be real watery, then you're going to see it reduce, and then the porks are going to come out to where it's kind of like nice and brown and crispy. So now that we've got our pork browned and nice and crispy, we're going to add white onions. Today I'm using 3 medium-sized white onions. You can start off with 2, you can use 3. White onions, simply because we want the flavor and not the bite. We're going to add those into the pork, mix them up well, and we're just going to let them saute for a few minutes until they start to turn a little translucent. That'll take not very long. The bits and pieces that I call them on the bottom of the pot, we're going to will get deglazed when we add our beef broth to this. So as we wait for the onions, pozole was normally made in Mesoamerica with the Aztecs and the Mayans on special occasions, and they wouldn't use pork. It was when the Spanish came over, that's when they introduced pork to the pozole. And another secret ingredient is the hominy. I'm going to share with you a little secret about that, but when we add it. Now that our onions are starting to turn translucent, don't be afraid to use medium or even high heat on this, because we're going to simmer this in a little while, and that's going to make the pork tender, not so chewy. To this I'm adding 8 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to mix that all together. I wish you could smell this because it smells really nice. Simmer for a few more minutes, get the garlic to cook down a little bit. And then the next step, this is where we're going to use our chili paste that we made. Pozole can be a little time consuming, but it's not difficult. Once you make the paste, you're going to have quite a bit left over. That's good to use in additional soups and dishes too. We're only going to use a cup worth of the paste for today's demonstration with this recipe. Since we're using this for New Year's Day, I'd recommend cooking it a day or even 2 ahead of time, because you're going to simmer this for 3 hours. You're going to let all the flavors meld, reheat it on New Year's Day, and enjoy it with your friends and family. Next, I'm going to add a tablespoon of dried oregano I have the chili paste. That's going to give the nice deep red rich color to the pozole. And then I have a cup and a half of crushed tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes if you like. Doesn't really matter. Everything gets cooked down together. So I'm going to mix this up. Get everything coated with that paste. You're going to start to see the bottom of the pan to deglaze where the pork was sticking to. Everything's nice. Now that we have our red paste and our tomatoes in there, everything's coated nicely. Everything's starting to simmer together. I'm going to start off with beef broth and just slowly add it at first, because what we're going to eventually do is get everything in the pot submerged with the beef broth. I'm using, these are 32-ounce boxes. I'll end up using all 4 boxes simply because we are going to simmer this for 3 to 3.5 hours to get all the flavors together, and also simmering it is going to tenderize the pork and make it really soft and not dry it out. Here's the second box. It's a nice little secret trip. If you release the pressure from the end of the box, the air goes through, it comes out faster, supposedly. All right, so now I have it just barely covered with the broth. So I'll add the 2 additional boxes right away. So what I'm going to do here, because I know I'm going to use the entire box of broth, so instead of risking it splashing all over the place, put it in the pan, poke a hole at the end, and you can see how it will come out because there's all the air is going straight through, no pressure. You can do this with boxes with 2-liter bottles of stuff too. So here's the last box that I'm going to use. Careful not to cut yourself if you slip though. All right, now that I have all 4 boxes in here, I'm going to turn the heat up all the way. We're going to bring this to a nice rolling boil. And then once we get the pozole to a boil, we're going to reduce it down to a low, slow simmer for 3.5 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this now. Leave a little crack for steam to come out, and then when it's ready, we'll cut right back to finish the dish. All right, now that we have our pozole boiling or simmering for 3.5 hours, it's time to add my favorite ingredient, which is hominy. So I have 2 32-ounce cans of hominy. I keep the broth because it acts as a thickening agent. Plus it helps give it that real kind of nutty and corn flavor that hominy is known for. Hominy is used in a lot of Latin dishes. It's made from field corn. So they soak it in a lye solution and alkali and lye to release it from the cob, open up the nutrients in the hominy, and it's used in various different ways. Here in the South, it's turned into grits, cornmeal. Latin American countries, they use it in soups. It's used to make the masa for tamales and also tortillas. So it's a great versatile ingredient. I'm gonna put this in here. We're gonna let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes so the hominy can come up to temperature with the rest of the pozole. And then when it's ready to serve, I'll dish it up and add all the sides to it. So we'll be right back when it's ready. All right, looks like our pozole has finished simmering for 3.5 hours. We added the hominy, let it simmer for another 10 or 15 minutes, and everything has come together quite nicely. So to serve the pozole, be generous with it. It's a nice hearty soup. I'm gonna get some of that delicious broth. You can see the color of the soup is from the chilies. So what I like to add to the soup is just a little bit of shredded cabbage. We're going to add some sliced radishes. Do a couple nice squeezes of lime juice in there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of avocado. And then for the final touch, this is Mexican crema. It's like a sour cream. It's a little bit runnier though. And then I also have some cotija cheese. All of this I got at Ingles. And then some people are afraid of this little magical ingredient, but I like it, cilantro, to top it off. And then serve with flour tortillas, corn chips, or nothing at all. But there it is, red chili pork pozole for New Year's Day. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Ingles table. Be sure to check out the website for more tips, tricks, and recipes. I'll see you next time.